M.O.N.K, aka the Mathematician, and in this very episode, we've got a pretty decent card here. UFC Vegas 72, headlined by Ricky Simón, and Yadong Song moved from last weekend to this weekend's card, headliner card. Definitely needed it in my opinion. Co-main is Caio against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Cody Brundage, Adolfo Vieira, the black belt hunter, is on this card. Julian Erosa. We've got a couple of heavyweight matchups. Josh Quinlan is making his second fight debut, if you will, after the quick knockout that he had in his actual debut. Charles Johnson, the what's her name? Something Ronda Rousey, the Russian Ronda or something, is on this card. So we've got a few decent fights going on this week. Before we get started, guys, check out dfsarmy.com. Use code M.O.N.K, M-O.N.K, save yourself some money on a VIP package today. We've got tons of other sports going on. The NBA playoffs are happening for DFS. We've got baseball going on, esports, every single thing you could imagine for DFS. We've got it over at DFS Army, and that includes winners, guys. That definitely includes winners. NASCAR, some big winners. MMA, even a couple of big winners with helmets in their GIF, or in their picture, I should say, in their PFP. So yeah, get on it, dfsarmy.com. Use code M.O.N.K, save yourself some money. And without further ado, let's get right into the card, guys. UFC Vegas 72. And we are kicking things off with Haley Cowan going against Jamie Lynn Horth. Before we get into the actual numbers breakdown, guys, you can see a ton of numbers on the screen real quick on the top line, or on the perimeter as I call it. We've got the name, the salary, their method of victory. We have a pro record, UFC record, L5, which is last 5 pro or UFC, and then exact. That means this is a third round women's bantamweight fight. As you can see, how many 3-round women's bantamweight fights are there, and what are the stats for just those specific fights? So that's what exact record is, and for most of these slides, that's what the numbers you will see are. It is the numbers from the exact record, so just the 3-round, or in one case a 5-round, and then the specific weight class fights. We've got their age, reach, all that stuff, their measurables, everything you need. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below, but let's get right into it, guys. Haley Cowan, 7,900. She is the underdog this week. No official UFC fights. The numbers you see on the screen are from her Dana White Contender Series fight. So she put up 2 points a minute, got outstruck overall pacing. Her at distance pacing, she scored less than 1 point a minute at distance, guys. Allowed just 1.6, which is next to nothing, but got doubled up almost in the process. Inside the distance, a little bit better, but still extremely low offensive numbers here from Haley Cowan. She did get a win, scored less than 61 points in that win, gave up almost 34, landed 1.73 strikes per minute, 75% takedown defense, spent 75% of the total fight time fighting inside the distance, and controlled 41% of that fight time, guys. Her ceiling is just what she scored, and her floor is the average for the division, because she only has one fight. We have no, standard deviation to work with, really. Let's see, she scored 30 bonus points in that win. Her strength of schedule is pretty much the worst on the card. I think it's second or third worst officially. 55.63 out of 100. So a very, very poor last 5 strength of schedule. In fact, her opponent's record in those last 5 fights, 21-18, so barely 500 here, and obviously 0 of 0 times on the optimal. Jamie Lynn Horth has next to no stats, guys. She doesn't even have a Dana White Contender Series fight. I believe she is 5-0 as a pro. I should have put her KO, sub, and decision numbers here, but I did not, so be sure to check it out. Actually, you're going to have to do your fight tape on this one for sure. Everyone, including probably myself, is leaning Horth, but we'll just have to see. Her ceiling and floor is just the average for the division. Her strength of schedule is actually her last 5 fights and her only 5 MMA fights, 58.19, so a very atrocious strength of schedule, but 3 points, 2.5 points better than Miss Haley Cowan. You want that strength of schedule number to be about 70 minimum, and we're in the mid to high 50s here. Horth's last 5 opponents' pro records combined 27-20, so more fights than Cowan, and also no one's been optimal here. So you guys are going to definitely have to do your fight tape on this one. I am leaning Horth, to be quite honest, but you never want to trust a 33-year-old debutante for the most part coming into the women's bantamweight class. But that said, Cowan is 31 years old coming into the weight class, so this is a very low-level, high-variance type fight. I think for that reason, you're going to have to play a little bit in DraftKings. I do prefer Horth overall, but 7,900 7,900 for Cowan, who didn't even score 61. I know that's a very small sample size, but I do not like that number. So I'll be more exposed to Horth here, and I will be picking her most likely for the win in this one. All right, and this one was just announced. Brian Kelleher out of his fight against Journey Newson. We have a step in. Marcus McGhee, 6-1 overall as a professional. 4-1 in his last 5. I have his salary up here as 6,900. That is not confirmed. We have no salary for McGhee. I assume it's going to be under Journey Newson's. I don't know if that's really a smart idea by me, but I think it's going to be 6,900 or 7,000. Those two salaries, I believe, are both available. But they could really set it at whatever they want. I'm just guessing there. 4 KO TKO wins, 1 submission loss. The ASWIP index says 5.21. That is a mistake. It should be at 0 because I have no fights for this guy. I have no UFC fights. We have no Dana White Contender Series fights. That's why we have no stats for him at all. He is 32 years old, 5'8", 70-inch reach. Orthodox fighter for Marcus McGhee. His ceiling and floor is just the average for the division. His strength of schedule in his last 5, not good, as you may or may not expect. 57.36. You want this number, like I said, to be about 70. We are well under that. His last 5 opponents pro record, 31-23. Meanwhile, Journey Newson, 10-4 as a pro, 1-3 in the UFC, and 1-3 in 3-round. Actually, no, these are all, let's see, 3-round bantamweight fights. This fight is now at catch weight, 140, because it's on short notice here. So it should be noted, Journey Newson has only fought at exactly 135 or at bantamweight. He's never fought in a catch weight fight in the UFC. So all these stats are from bantamweight fights. 1.72 points per minute is what he's scoring. He's getting outscored rather by a point per minute. At distance, he's outscoring his opponents by about 1/4 of a point per minute. But inside the distance, 1.53 points scored a minute. Getting hit with 6.56 points a minute, guys, inside the distance. That is not good at all. DraftKings points per win. He only has the 1 win. 65 points is what he scored when he loses. That's 3 losses. He's giving up an average of 95.27. That is quite a bit of points, especially if McGhee comes in at a very low salary. I might be looking at that. 2.76 strikes landed per minute. 43.75% takedown defense is god-awful. Much like the strength of schedule, you want that number closer to 70%, and we're well under 50 here. Spends 23.25% of his time fighting inside the distance. Controls only 8.82% of that grappling time. So you're going to have to do your fight tape on Marcus McGhee, obviously. If he has any grappling whatsoever, think about that angle as well. The ceiling for Newson, just what he scored in his first fight, 65.26. 30 points bonus per win in his 1 win. 73.31 strength of schedule is a very good number. You want that to be over 70 again, and we're well over that here. 57-20 is his last 5 opponents' record. He has yet to make the optimal lineup, Journey Newson. 0 for 2 since 2021 at bantamweight here. So, like I said, the $6,900 salary is not accurate. Newson will stay at $7,300. I don't think they've ever changed a salary after a fight has been changed, but I would be surprised here if McGhee came in very expensive. The only other thing I would note, guys, what I call unnatural salaries, meaning 2 salaries that do not add up to $16,200, which is what we will have here. Someone has made the optimal lineup in those fights 80.95% of the time since 2021, guys. 81% of the time we have a last-minute replacement here. Someone makes the optimal lineup, and that's usually because guys come in cheaper than they would originally. So we might have 2 very low salaries here. I would automatically target this fight. Personally, I'm looking at Marcus McGhee. I think he's going to have a great salary. Even from a betting perspective, you should definitely do your tape and keep an eye on that. I think he's like plus 200 or something at this point. So I don't know, something like that. So he should be right around 6,900, 7,000. I'm very excited for this fight now. Not that I don't like Kelleher, but now that the salaries have changed and it's an unnatural salary, we're getting 2 cheap guys here. I think I'm really liking the McGhee side. Even the Newson side, I'm automatically going to raise my stock on this fight just because of that. So give me this fight as a sloppy fight. Hopefully we'll see something from one of these guys. And yeah, I'm hoping for one of these 2 to make the optimal lineup. Third fight of the night, we've got Stephanie Egger going against UFC debutante Irina Alekseeva. aka Russian Ronda, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly. Yeah, looks that way. Let's see here. 4-1 in the professionally, rather, I should say, for Alekseeva. I have no stats for her, no Dana White Contender Series fights, no nothing at all. Her ceiling and floor that you see is just the average for the weight class. The only actual stats I have for her are her strength of schedule, and that is not good, guys. Spoiler alert, worst on the entire card. 52.19 strength of schedule in her last 5. Turns out for her, it's her only 5. Very, very poor strength of schedule. Her opponent record is 24-23, so barely over 500, even closer than, I forget, whoever we mentioned before. Stephanie Egger should, I think, in my opinion, should absolutely wipe the floor with her. Egger has been in the UFC for a while, 5 UFC fights, 4 of them 3-round women's bantamweight fights in which she is 2-2. Overall, she's outpacing her opponents by half a point per minute. At distance, not great, but inside the distance, 3 points to 2.33. Average per win, very good for Stephanie Egger at the weight class, 106.84 per win in her 2 UFC wins at the weight class, allowing just 85 when she loses. So 1.9 strikes landed per minute. That's not really her game, though. 33% takedown defense, doesn't look great. Has spent 73% of her total fight time fighting inside the distance and controls just under 40% of that fight time. Very high ceiling, especially for the women's bantamweight division. Both of her wins over triple digits. So if she gets that W, very good chance she's going to score very well. 80 points bonus per win on average. So we've got a first round finish and a second round finish, if I had to guess. Her strength of schedule, very good. Just under 70. I shouldn't say very good, but compared to Irina Alekseeva, 17, almost 18 points better. I'd say it's very good comparatively. Her last 5 opponents' pro record, a little better than 24-23, 47-18. And lastly, Stephanie Egger has made the optimal lineup in 2 out of 3 chances at the weight class since 2021, guys. Egger is fighting the much better strength of schedule, like I said, going against Mayra Bueno Silva, girls like Tracy Cortez, Jessica Rose Clark, maybe not the best of the best, but women that have several fights in the UFC. Irina Alekseeva has 5 pro fights, guys. I'd be really surprised if she gets past Stephanie Egger here. I love Egger. I think she's a great play at I know 9,400 is very expensive, but as we said, I mean, it's only a 2-fight sample size at the weight class. But if she wins, she's getting triple digits. On average, it's almost 107. So it could be one of those situations, if you roster her, maybe she doesn't score that well, but there's a possibility she hits triple digits. But if you don't roster her, you're going to have missed out completely. And with the lack of 9K fighters this week, you probably are going to want somebody that's going to has a chance to score decently in your lineup. So I don't mind Stephanie Egger as a play here at 9,400. I think she's relatively cheap going against a newcomer with 5 professional fights. So this might not be the highest level of fight, but there are definitely levels here, and I think Egger is levels above Alekseeva, regardless of what her nickname is. So give me Egger for DraftKings and Egger for the win as well. Next up, we've got Charles Johnson taking on Cody Durden. I really like this fight for an undercard fight this week, UFC Vegas 72. We've got Charles Johnson coming in at 8,700. In my opinion, that is a bit expensive for what we get here. He is 2-2 in the UFC, 2-1 in 3-round flyweight fights. 32 years old, switch stance fighter. His overall pacing, not the best. He's getting outscored by almost 2 points a minute. 2.72 to 4.5 points allowed per minute. At distance, he's pretty much break even, 2.84 to 2.82 points per minute, but inside the distance, very, very poor, scoring just less than 1.5 points a minute, allowing 6 points a minute inside the distance. Scores less than 100 when he wins, so not ideal, 98.24. And 30. Let's see, he allows 33 when he does win, almost 34. He gives up 120. He has given up 120 in his one loss. I believe that was to Muhammad Mokaev. Gave up 119. Scores only 17.5 when he loses so far in his 1 3-round flyweight fight. 4.66 strikes landed per minute. 57.5% takedown defense. That is rough, but most of that's probably from the Mokaev fight. Spent 47% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance. Controls only 18.79% of that fight time. Not a good look, especially when you're going against a guy like Cody Durden, who has the grappling numbers that he has, which we will get into shortly. decent ceiling, okay floor. Only one of his wins he put up triple digits, 60 bonus points per win on average. Has a decent strength of schedule of 72.75, so we're well above the 70 mark here. Can't knock him for that. Has yet to make an optimal lineup, guys. 0-3 since 2021 as far as making the optimal lineup in 3-round flyweight fights. So Charles Johnson's numbers leave a bit to be desired, in my opinion, especially at the price tag he's coming in on. I'm probably going to be focused more on his opponent this week, Cody Durden, which is surprising to me, but I think this is going to be a decent fight. He's 7,500 this week. Let's see, 3-2-1 in the UFC, 3-2 in 3-round flyweight fights. Overall, he's outscoring his opponents 2.5 to 1. 4.79 points a minute to 1.9 is what he allows. At distance, he's outpacing them barely. Inside the distance, it's not even close. Guy scores over 5 points a minute, allows less than 1 point per minute inside the distance. 5 to 1 is what he's outscoring his opponents at that range. DraftKings points per win, he's at 97, so not what you'd want to see. You want to see triple digits there, but at 7,500, you can take that. And he scores only 14 per loss, gives up 109 when he loses. Both of these guys giving up a ton of points historically when they lose in the flyweight division. That's why I will be targeting this fight. I think the loser is definitely going to be giving up a ton of points. 3.45 strikes landed per minute, which is a strike under Johnson, but still, check out these grappling stats. 83% takedown defense, fantastic. Spends 61% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, and he controls 92%, almost 92.5% of that fight time. The complete opposite of Charles Johnson, who controlled less than 19% of the grappling time. So that is definitely an angle I will be looking for. The ceiling and floor is okay for Durden. 108 ceiling, 22.6 floor. One of his 3 wins at the weight class has netted him over 100 points, which is definitely what we're looking for. 50 bonus points per win is not bad. Strength of schedule is just barely above Charles Johnson, 72.83. So 2 guys with some good strength of schedules here. But unlike Johnson, who is 0-3 making optimal, Durden has made optimal in 2 of his 4 fights, 3-round flyweight fights since 2021. So one guy's fighting optimally and one guy simply is not. You know who I'm targeting for that, and it happens to be the cheaper guy this week. So I love the Cody Durden side. I will be picking him to get the upset win. This could be a sloppy fight, but I think it's going to be an interesting fight where somebody probably gets finished, even if they don't. You know Durden's going to fight his balls off. You know Johnson's going to fight his balls off, and it's going to be a good fight. So I'm really looking forward to this one, but give me Durden at 7,500 to get the win here. Well, thank goodness this fight is not off. My God, it's the absolute banger of all bangers we've got here. Jake, don't call me fat, Collier, going against Martin Buday. This fight is garbage. It is, I know, the people's main event, but this is absolute trash.
I don't even want to be around anymore.
Collier is the favorite somehow, 8,200. He's 5-7 in the UFC. In 3-round heavyweight fights, he is 2-3. So not really a good look. Let's get right into his numbers. He is scoring, outpacing his opponents 3.73 points a minute to 2.64, outpacing him at distance by about a half a point per minute. Inside the distance, he's actually got very impressive numbers, guys. 6.91 points scored a minute inside the distance for Jake Collier in 3-round heavyweight fights, giving up just over 1. So he's almost 7 to 1 inside the distance. That is kind of surprising to me. DraftKings points per win leaves a lot to be desired, scoring only 92 points, less than 92.5 points per win in his 2 wins at heavyweight. When he loses, he puts up a decent score of almost 40, 38.25, so maybe not a bad cash play. I mean, this fight is awful. Allows less than 89 points per loss. Somehow lands 7.66 strikes in per minute. No one's attempted to take him down somehow at heavyweight. Spends only 10% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, but somehow controls 98% of that fight time. So some absolutely bonkers numbers here from Jake Collier, in my opinion. His ceiling is decent, 105, and his floor is probably the best on the card somehow at 64, almost 65 points. Wow. 50% of his wins, which is 1, has been over 100 points. 60 bonus points per win is what he's averaging. I'm sure that's probably a first-round finish and a decision finish, if I had to guess. 64.42 is his strength of schedule. That is not good. Again, we are well below the 70-point threshold that we like to see. His last 5 opponents' record, 101-56. and he has made the optimal lineup in one of his past 3 fights since 2021. Surprising numbers from Collier, because really I see Jake Collier in my head, and I know you guys love him, but I just don't see a good fighter when I think about him. But then when I look at these numbers, some of them are really not bad. So this could be an interesting matchup against Martin Buday. 8K this week, scores 3.3 points per minute, allows 2.34, getting outpaced at distance by about half a point per minute. But again, inside the distance, we're 7-1, 3.5 points per minute to half a point per minute is what Buday is scoring compared to what he's getting scored on him. But his DraftKings points per win is awful. This guy is 2-0 in the UFC, 2-0 in 3-round heavyweight fights, scores less than 74 points per win on average. That is unplayable, completely unplayable at any salary, in my opinion. Has no losses, 4.5 strikes landed per minute. Again, no one's attempted a takedown on Buday. No one's attempted a takedown on either of these guys in the UFC or at this weight class, which I do find interesting. Very comparable grappling numbers. Spends not a ton of time inside the distance, 30.5%. I mean, that's 3 times more than Collier, but still not very much. But controls 96.5% of the grappling time. That's just like Collier's 98. Buday's ceiling is very low, 91.3. His floor is also low, but that's just the average for the division because he has no losses. No wins over 100, 30 bonus points per win, 63.85 strength of schedule. So we're even worse than Jake Collier. 56-26 last 5 opponents pro record, and Martin Buday has yet to make an optimal lineup. That's not surprising considering he barely scores 73 points per win when he does get the win. So I don't know what to think about this fight. I think this probably goes all 3. I think this is a very sloppy, boring heavyweight decision. And I really wouldn't be surprised to see Martin Buday walk away with the win here. So I'm going to be picking Buday at 8K. I'm probably not rostering either guy. I mean, neither guy scores well historically. Maybe in cash I'd have a little bit of Collier, but I don't think he really wins. So I'm thinking Buday by doing what Buday does and scoring no points in his way to a decision. So I'll probably be fading this heavyweight fight a little bit. But yeah, this is going to be a slop fest, and I can't see myself playing much of either guy, to be quite honest. Next fight, we've got Josh Quinlan taking on Trey Waters here on short notice. I believe Trey Waters is stepping up. Ange Loosa was originally Quinlan's opponent, but he has dropped out. So now we've got Trey Waters, who just fought a couple weeks ago. I'm probably leaning Quinlan here. I know we haven't seen much from him. We got a very early first-round KO, I believe, against Semmelsberger. I'm not sure off the top of my head. But this week, we finally have salaries for him. $8,500. For Josh Quinlan, 4 KOs in his pro career, 2 submission wins, no losses. He's a perfect 6-0, 1-0 in the UFC, 5-0 in his last 5. 30 years old. Overall pacing in his one UFC fight, 5.2 to 3 points per minute. At distance was over 6.5 points a minute to basically 0. Allowed, and then inside the distance it's the complete opposite. Josh Quinlan scored 0 points inside the distance and gave up almost 13 in like the 2 minutes that he was that fight lasted. Did score 101 points, did make the optimal lineup, only put up 1.4 significant strikes per minute, 50% takedown defense, spent 21% of his fight time fighting in the distance, controlled 0% of that fight time. Are we going to have to worry about that with Trey Waters? You're going to have to do your fight tape on that to find out. But 90 points per win, strength of schedule is very bad. 57.28. That is a very, very bad. I think it's fourth or fifth worst on the entire card. So Josh Quinlan definitely has been fighting pretty much cans in his career up until this point. Last 5 opponents record 31-26, and as I said, he did make the optimal lineup in his one UFC fight. Then Trey Waters, I do have a Dana White Contender Series fight here. Really, none of the stats look good at all, just like Quinlan. I mean, this guy allowed over 20 points per minute inside the distance. 20 points per minute. Scored only 8 points in his loss. Again, controlled 0% of what little grappling time he was involved in. I don't know if I've ever seen a fight where both guys historically controlled 0%. I mean, they didn't even get a clinch going for a second. 0% grappling time. Ceiling and floor is the average for the division. His floor is actually what he scored in his last fight. Much better strength of schedule. We're basically at 70 here for Trey Waters. That is 13 points different than Josh Quinlan. Incredible. Incredible difference here from a guy that's in the UFC to a guy that's coming into the UFC. Usually these two numbers are switched. Last 5 opponents record for Waters 33-12, and obviously has not made any kind of optimal lineups. Has 6 finishes in 7 pro wins. 28 years old. He is 6'5", 77-inch reach, so he's going to be the much bigger opponent compared to Quinlan. So you be sure to watch that. Check out the fight tape here. I'm leaning Quinlan. I've seen a lot of people saying fraud check on this guy. I don't mind that. I just don't know if this fight is the time. Maybe with Angelusa it would have been, but we got a short notice guy here in Waters that looked really bad in his Dana White Contender Series fight. So give me Josh Quinlan, and I don't mind rostering him at 8,500. I wasn't sure if we were going to get him at 9K or 8,500. DK did the right thing, in my opinion, put him at 8,500, so he's going to be pretty easy to get to. And I really don't mind rostering him, especially with what he did in his last fight. So if we can see that again, we're going right back to the optimal lineup. So give me Josh Quinlan here in this short notice replacement fight against Trey Waters. Fight! Here we have another heavyweight banger between Marcos Rogerio de Lima going against Waldo Cortes-Acosta, two of the longest names in heavyweight history fighting each other. Absolutely love to see it. Neither one would fit on my screen, so we had to do a little adjustment. 8,600 for Rogerio de Lima here. He is 9-6 in the UFC, 6-3 in 3-round heavyweight fights, should be noted. 37 years old, the oldest fighter on this entire card, by a little bit of a margin. Let's see. Overall pacing's very good, outpacing his opponents rather by 2 points a minute, 3.5 to 1.5. At distance, a little bit less, just under 2 points a minute, but he's allowing, barely over half a point per minute at distance, which is basically nothing. And then inside the distance, it's a little bit more, 4.77 points per minute, allowing 3.19. So he's outscoring his opponents everywhere, which you do like to see. DraftKings points per win for De Lima, for Rogerio de Lima, 101.75. So we are in triple digits. We love to see that, but when he loses, guy only scores 6.5 points. So it's a killer be killed scenario here with Rogerio de Lima. Actually, that's what his that's what his opponents score. I misread that. His opponents score 6.5 points per win when Rogerio wins. When de Lima loses, he scores 25. So that's a bit better than 6. But he only allows 82 per loss, so he's not giving up a ton of points. 3.25 strikes landed a minute, almost 70% takedown defense. Spends 24% of his fight time inside the distance. Controls only 24% of that fight time, so not really what you want to see, but are we going to see much grappling from Waldo Cortes-Acosta? Probably not. Ceiling for Marcos, 123.85 and a decent floor at 37.5. 4 of his 6 wins at the weight class were over triple digits, so you absolutely love to see that. And I said 2, I think I meant 4. I don't know what I said. 4 wins out of 6, over 100 points. Definitely what you want to see. Average bonus points per win, 78.3. Fantastic. Strength of schedule is almost at that 70 mark. 119-49 is his opponent's pro record in his last 5. And most importantly, guys, optimal fighters fight optimally. Marcos Rogerio de Lima has made the optimal lineup in 3 of his last 4 3-round heavyweight fights since 2021. So I will definitely be rostering some Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I love the numbers here. I love the optimal record. And I love the score. The amount of points he puts up, the amount of points he scores per win is very, very good. Something I'm looking forward to. So I'm hoping he's going to get a win here and score very well for 8,600. Now, Waldo Cortes-Acosta, $1,000 cheaper at 7,600, outpacing his opponents by a point per minute. Let's see, at distance, 3.8 to 1.6, but inside the distance, it's the opposite of Marcos Rogerio de Lima, scoring only 1.21 points a minute and allowing almost 5. So he's definitely going to have to be careful looking for that clinch, which I'm sure Rogerio is going to try to apply on Cortes-Acosta here. DraftKings points per win for Waldo, under 75 points in 2 wins. That is not what we are looking for. He has no losses yet, only 2-0 in the UFC. Drops 7.33 strikes per minute, 66.67% takedown defense, spends only 6% of his fight time fighting in the distance and control only 13% of that fight time. So safe to say, Cortez does not prefer to be inside the distance. Very low ceiling and floor, no wins over 100, 30 bonus points per win, very poor strength of schedule, 62.6. And again, 0 times optimal since 2021 in his last 2 fights. So I prefer Rogerio de Lima. You're going to have to do your tape to see who's actually going to win. I'm going to be rostering much more of Rogerio de Lima. Cortes-Acosta does get wins, but does not score well this far into his UFC career, whereas Rogerio de Lima, we have 9 fights to go off of at the weight class, and he scores very, very well, guys. 6 wins, like I said, 4 of them over 100. Absolutely love to see that, so I will be picking Marcos to get the win, even though he's 37 years old. But at heavyweight, age does not matter as much as other weight classes. So I like Marcos Rogerio de Lima over Waldo Cortes-Acosta, and I will be rostering him accordingly as well, just based on the scoring history that we have for him. We have got an interesting fight here in the featherweight division. Julian Erosa coming against newcomer, Fernando Padilla. There's some interesting stats for Julian Erosa. I mean, everybody's climbing on him to get the win, and I totally understand why you're going against a pretty young guy, UFC newcomer, debutant, whatever you want to call it. But check out these numbers from Julian Erosa. He is 6-6 in the UFC, 28-10 as a pro, but in 3-round featherweight fights, he has 1 KO TKO win, 4 KO TKO losses. He has 1 decision loss. His average ass whoop index is negative 20.63. This is very, very low. And his exact record in 3-round featherweight fights, he is 1-5. 1-5 in 3-round featherweight fights. 3 of his past 4 fights have been at catchweight, so he hasn't even fought officially at featherweight in quite some time. But just check out some of these numbers, guys. 1-5. 3-round featherweight fights, like I said, he's getting outpaced huge by 2-1, more than that. 2.17 points a minute, allowing 4.72. At distance, 2.2 points a minute, allowing 3.88. Inside the distance, it's even worse. 1.57 scored, allowing 5.89. These numbers are god-awful. He's getting outscored from absolutely everywhere at featherweight. I think I kept saying flyweight. I mean featherweight. 3-round featherweight fights. When he did win, his one win in the weight class, 131.5 points. So he scored very well. Unfortunately, he gives up 100 points on average per loss and only scores 13 when he does lose. Lands 3.76 strikes a minute, 41.67% takedown defense. 41%. Spends 32.93% of his fight time fighting inside the distance, controls only 15% of that fight time. Again, high ceiling. That's just his 1 win total that he scored at flyweight. Pretty low floor, only 21 points. 115 bonus points per win. Obviously, that's only 1 win, like we said, and it was a quick win bonus, so that's why he scored a ton of points. 67.9 strength of schedule in his last 5. Not the best, but not the worst we've seen on this card, that's for sure. 75-39 opponent's record in his last 5. And Erosa has made the optimal lineup in 1 of his past 3 fights since 2021 that were 3-round featherweight fights, not catchweight. Like I said, his last fight was at featherweight, but the 3 fights before that were all at catchweight. I think he missed weight once, and I think his opponents missed weight twice, or he had a backup and it went to catchweight. Blah, blah, blah. Either way, the numbers are very, very interesting for Julian Erosa. And much like Marvin Vettori, you can't just pile all of his fights in together. You really got to separate 5 rounds from 3 rounds. In this case, you really have to separate featherweights from everything else because his numbers are atrocious at the weight class. And I'm going to have a real hard time rostering Julian Erosa at 8,800. Even though he is fighting a newcomer, he should roll here. I just don't see it that way. I'm going to be rostering a bunch more Fernando Padilla than I originally was thinking. He has no Dana White Contender Series fights. You got to do your tape on him. His ceiling is okay, 95-20. It's just the average for the division. Strength of schedule is 4 points lower than Erosa at 63-21, but what do you expect? In his last 5 opponents' records, 62-38. Those are the only real stats I have for him. The kid's 14-4. He has 12 of his 14 wins were finishes, 4 KO TKOs, 8 submissions, and he's 4-1 in his last 5 fights. 7 years younger, 2-inch reach advantage here. Orthodox versus Southpaw. I'm going to have a lot more Fernando Padilla than I would have originally since I've seen these Julian Erosa numbers at featherweight. So I was shocked by the amount of people being able to do whatever they want to Julian Erosa. I mean, 1-5 at the weight class is god-awful. Let's hope both guys make weights because at catchweight, who knows, anything could happen. But in featherweight, Julian Erosa is always seemingly working off his back foot. So give me a bunch of the newcomer. I'm going to take a chance on the newcomer this week. I don't really like any of the other ones. And I will be fading Julian Erosa a little bit at the ridiculous price of 8,800. So hopefully he doesn't come out here and get a quick win bonus and make me look too stupid. But I will have some of both guys. Probably more Padilla, though, at that price. Here's another fight I'm really looking forward to. We've got the black belt hunter, Rodolfo Vieira, $9,100, going against Cody Brundage at $7,100. Let's start with the favorite here. Vieira's 8-2 professionally, 3-2 in the UFC, and 3-2 in 3-round middleweight fights. So we love to see when it all matches up like that. Got a great ass whoop index. He's got a great ass. What was that Pacino movie? Name that Pacino movie in the comments. She's got a great ass. Name that movie. Rodolfo Vieira, I don't know much about his ass, but he has a great ass whoop index, 9.37, which is very, very good. Overall pacing, he's outpacing his opponents 3.5 to 2.7. At distance, not so good, 2 to 3, basically. He's getting outpaced. But inside the distance, as you would expect, it's like, what is that, 4 to 1 almost? 5.5 points scored per minute, allowing just 1.36. Scores 98.81 per win over his 3 wins, so not exactly where we'd like to be, but close to triple digits. At 9,100, you'd want that a little bit more, in my opinion. Allows only 86 when he loses, scores 35 in his losses, so maybe not a bad cash play either. 3.6 points or strikes landed per minute. For the grappler, not too bad. 100% takedown defense, which is surprising. Most grapplers have a very low takedown defense because simply they don't mind being taken down. They want to work off the ground, get reversals, etc. Put you in questionable positions. So it's kind of surprising to see 100% takedown defense. Let's see, spends 38.5% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, and as you would expect, guys, controls nearly 88% of that fight time. 109 points is his ceiling, almost 40 is his floor. 2 of his 3 wins over 100 points. So there we go. That is a stat we love to see. 2 of 3 wins in the triple digits, 68.33 bonus points per win on average, and a great strength of schedule, 74.48. That is a very, very good last 5 strength of schedule. The only problem is Rodolfo has yet to make the optimal lineup. Twice in triple digits, and he's not making the optimal lineup. That is not a good look. 0 of 3 since 2021. So we'd really like to see, I really like the 2 of 3 wins over 100. The amount of bonus points per win on average is good, and the strength of schedule is very good. I love the inside the distance pacing, but man, just not making optimal with all those things going for you is pretty questionable. Meanwhile, we've got Cody Brundage. What are we going to get for 7,100? Guys 2-2 in the UFC and 2-2 in 3-round middleweight fights, getting outpaced 2.8 points a minute to 4.23, but at distance, it's a different story. 2.76, allowing just, 1.15 points a minute at distance. Inside the distance, he's getting crushed. 2.3 points scored, 4.5 points allowed, and now you're going up against Rodolfo Vieira. I don't know about all that, man. 106.3 is what he scores per win over his 2 wins, and he allows over 100 points in his 2 losses. So triple digits all around for Cody Brundage fights. 1.82 strikes landed a minute, 69% takedown defense. 70% of his total fight time has been spent fighting inside the distance, which is surprising. And he's only controlled 31% of that fight time, guys. Now, again, he's going against the black belt hunter, Rodolfo Vieira. Interesting look here. Ceiling is 114. Floor is half of what Vieira's is. Only one of his fights he has scored over 100 points, and he got that done in the first round. I believe that was against... actually, never mind. I was about to say something stupid. I don't remember. 70 strength of schedule is good. 45-18 last 5 opponents record, and 2 of 4 times Cody Brundage has made optimal since 2021. You absolutely love to see that. So I'm going to have more exposure to Brundage just based on that. In his strength of schedule, there's a couple of good numbers that I like in here, but I will have more exposure than I normally would have for the $7,100 salary for Brundage. And Vieira, I will be rostering him as well, but man, you got to watch out for that gas tank. I mean, he can go 3 rounds. I believe he's gone 3 rounds. I don't have my stats open at the moment, but I think his cardio's gotten a little better, you would hope, anyways, because he completely fell apart and got subbed against Fluffy Hernandez. That's the one everybody remembers. So I believe he went 3 rounds since then, but don't quote me on that. So I'll have both guys rostered. I think the chance to score over 100 points is decent in this fight, and obviously the huge salary difference is going to make me want to roster a bit more Brundage. But give me both guys here. The smart pick is probably Vieira, but man, I would not be surprised if Cody came out here and got a huge upset. So I'm going to be playing both sides of this one for sure. Co-main event of the evening. We've got a pretty decent fight here. Borralho going against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Yes, I can spell his name without even looking. It's pretty. I'm very impressed with myself. It's one of the one Polish names I can actually do. I think it's Polish. Please don't kill me if it's not. 9,500 from Borralho. Kind of surprising, if you ask me. He is 3-0 in the UFC. 3-0 in 3-round middleweight fights. But listen to some of these numbers. He leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to stats and when it comes to DraftKings historical numbers. 3.25 points a minute overall, decent. Allows just 2 points back at him, very good. At distance, basically 1-to-1. 1 point per minute, 1 point back at him. It's pretty much negligible. Inside the distance, pretty good. 3.5 points a minute, 1.5 points allowed. But here's where it gets interesting. He only is averaging 77.59 points per win. I believe all three were decisions. One was a technical decision, but he's just not scoring points. He's just not scoring points at all. No losses. 1.41 significant strikes landed per minute. 25% takedown defense. Spends 73.5% of his fight time fighting inside the distance. Controls 80% of that fight time. So this is a lot of lay and pray, control time. I'm not going to let you strike. I'm not going to let you land any damage type of fights. Very smart game plan. But when it comes to DraftKings, that is not what we are looking for. We want guys that are a bit more risky than that. His ceiling's got to be one of the lowest on the entire card. Less than 80 points for a ceiling, guys. 80 points. No wins in the triple digits. As I said, 30 bonus points per win on average. Very good strength of schedule. Well over 70. 73.18. 68-21 last 5 opponents pro record, and as I said, maybe I didn't, has yet to make the optimal lineup in his UFC career. 0-3. So I mean, the guy's 13-1 as a pro, 5-0 in his last 5, 3-0 in the UFC. Fantastic fighter. I enjoy watching him fight, to be honest. But for DraftKings, this guy is like DraftKings kryptonite, guys. I mean, less than 80 points a win. What are we doing at 9,500? And you know me, I love playing the $9,500 salary. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this week. I mean, is this the week that Borralho is going to just go off and put Michal Oleksiejczuk away and score like 110 points? Signs point to no. So I'm probably going to be fading the $9,500 salary this week, even though it pains me to say that because I love the salary and I like the fighter a lot too. So Michal Oleksiejczuk on the other side, his numbers are the complete opposite. He is giving you every reason to play him in DraftKings, even though he is at the worst statistical salary possible, 6,700. I think it has a less than 5% win rate, as like a 2% optimal rate. It is the worst salary you can play. But Michal Oleksiejczuk is really giving it a chance this week. He's only 28 years old, so younger than his opponent. 18-5 as a pro, 6-3 in the UFC, 4-1 in his last 5. 2-0 in 3-round middleweight fights. So as you know, he used to fight at light heavyweight. He is moving down, staying down rather, after his 2 fights. Since moving down, his pacing is extraordinary. 9.5 points a minute. Excuse me while I cough. 9.5 points a minute, allowing 3.8 back at him. So allowing a decent amount, but he's tripling up what his opponents are scoring. At distance, he's put up 20 points a minute, guys. We must have like no fight time here. Next to no fight time. 20 points a minute at distance, outscoring his opponents 20-1. I've never seen anything like that. Inside the distance, it's about even. A ton scored to a ton allowed, almost 5 to 4.5. DraftKings points per win, 114.64. No losses. 7 strikes landed a minute. The same takedown defense, 25%. That is interesting. Let's see. Spends almost the same amount of time fighting inside the distance, 77.5. Controls only 53% of that fight time, which is a very good number. But compared to Borralho's 80%, it is a bit lacking. Let's see. 124 ceiling, so 45 points higher than Borralho. All of his wins, both of them I should say, 2 wins over 100 points at the weight class, 90 points per win. So yeah, we're looking at 2 inside the 5-minute fights. So not a lot of total fight time, which is why some of these numbers are crazy high. Strength of schedule is 71.15. So again, over the 70 mark. Last 5 opponent record is decent, and he has made the optimal lineup. Oleksiejczuk 1 out of 2 fights since 2021 at the weight class. We love to see it. I don't know. I'm going to have to go against everything that I know is right here, and I'm going to have to fade the $9,500 salary. I'm going to have to actually roster 6,700. So that's something I literally don't do. I don't roster 6,700. If anything, it's like 5-10%. Most of the time, it is X'd out of my player pool. So this is going to be a very different look for me this week. I will have way more 6,700 than I usually would. That said, maybe 20%. That's still eons and whatever else. I mean, mountains above what I would usually roster this salary at. So I'm going to be fading a bit of Borralho, and I will be overplaying Oleksiejczuk. I bet you I'll be over the field for sure. I'm curious to see what the ownership's going to be for Oleksiejczuk at 6,700. But man, this is a guy that wins all the time and doesn't score well versus a guy that wins a lot and scores very well but has a terrible salary. So this fight's going to be interesting. I'm very much looking forward to it. And we have arrived at the main event of the evening. Ricky Simón going against Yadong Song. This one was rescheduled from last week. Probably a good idea since we had absolutely nothing to headline this card. 8,400 for Ricky Simón here. What are we going to get? Guy is 20-3. Actually, I'm going to start this off by saying he is one of 3 guys. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen this, but he is one of 3 fighters since 2021 to have competed at least 4 times, to have a 100% win rate and a 100% optimal rate, meaning he's made the optimal lineup in all 4 of his fights. The other 2, I believe, are Andre Petroski and someone that I can't remember, but that's not important right now because Ricky Simón is one of those 3 fighters, and he can be all alone at the top if he gets a big win over Song Yadong this week. So, hey, optimal fighters fight optimally. Ricky Simón, 4 of 4 times optimal. I mean, how could you not roster this guy? He is 8-2 in the UFC, 5-0 in his last 5, 0 of 0 exact record, meaning he's never fought a 5-round bantamweight fight specifically. So every stat you see on the screen here is from his UFC career. So I just wanted to make that clear. Whereas the rest of the stats are really from the exact record. This one is from his whole career. So overall, 5.19 points a minute to less than 1. He is murdering people out here. At distance, 2.62 to 1.5. Inside the distance, 6.57 points a minute to 0.28 points a minute allowed. That is basically 0. I mean, his ratio is almost, undefined, as they would say. You can't divide by 0. DKP per win, 110.74 per win, guys. This is over 8 UFC wins. He's averaging 110 points. Or sorry, wait. Okay, I take that back. This is not 8 UFC wins. This is his last 5. This is not his whole UFC career, his last 5 fights only. So I apologize for that. He's still killing it. 110.74 over his last 5 fights. One of those is a KO. 2 of them are subs, 2 decision wins. Ass whoop index of 27.37, lands 3.14 strikes a minute, 100% takedown defense. Fantastic. Spends 54% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance and controls 97% of that fight time. I've been seeing people, is Ricky Simón going to grapple? He damn well better grapple, man. No one's been able to stop him. No one in his last 5 fights has been able to stop him from his game. 121, almost 122 ceiling. 4 of his 5 wins in the triple digits. 80%. Love to see it. 54 bonus points per win, 71.82 strength of schedule. His opponent's record is 137. And as I said before, this magic number, 4 of 4 times optimal since 2021 at the weight class. What else do you need to know, man? I'm going to be playing a metric ton of Ricky Simón this week. As I said, optimal fighters fight optimally. This guy is one of the top 3. Jailton Almeida is the other one. It's Jailton Almeida, it's Andre Petroski, and then it's Ricky Simón. Now, Jailton's been fighting at heavyweight. Petroski's been fighting at, I believe, middleweight. So this is the smallest guy on that list, and he is killing it at bantamweight. So I will definitely have Ricky Simón here, and I will have a lot. I don't care what the field is. I'm going well over the field. I really like him to win this fight. Honestly, I think it's going to be a great fight. But I'm a Ricky Simón fan, and maybe my bias is playing into this a little bit. but the stats are also playing into it, guys. I mean, 4 of 4 optimal. Like I said, I have like 830 fighters tracked since 2021. He is one of 3 fighters to be 100% optimal with a 100% win rate and at least 4 fights. So I think you should probably play him with his 110-point win. Either way, I've begged you to play him for long enough. Let's check out the Song Yadong side, because this should not be overlooked. I'm going to have a bunch of Song Yadong rostered as well. This one, let's see, he is 8-2-1, 3-2 in his last 5, 0-1 in 5-round bantamweight fights. But even though he does have a 5-round bantamweight fight, these are the stats from his last 5. Just like Ricky Simón, I wanted to keep it even. His numbers are far worse than Ricky Simón's are, as you would expect. 2.96 points a minute to 2.51. He's outscoring his opponents at distance, 2.5 to 2. Inside the distance, he's getting outscored 3 points to 4.5 per minute, and that is not something you want to have on your record when you're about to face Ricky Simón. Because, I mean, look at these. The grappling numbers from Simón are wild. Song, on the other hand, when he wins, it's no 110 points, guys. It's 20 points less. 91.87 per win. His opponents, when they win, only scoring 85.05, and that's over his last 2 losses. So Song does do a good job of holding his opponents to very few points. 4.79 strikes landed per minute, 79% takedown defense, very good. 15% of his total fight time fighting inside the distance, and he controls only 34.64% of that time. Those 2 numbers really scare me if you're on the Song side and you're going against Ricky Simón, who controls 97% of the grappling time. The ceiling for Song is very low, 103, but he has a decent floor of 38. 1 of his 3 wins in his last 5 have been over triple digits. 63.33 bonus points per win, 74.59 strength of schedule, so another very good strength of schedule here. Opponent's last 5 record, 83-28. Here's the big one, guys. Ricky Simón, I've been going nuts. 4 of 4, oh my god. Song Yadong is 0 for 5. He's had 5 chances in his last 5 to get on the optimal lineup since 2021, and he has failed every single time. 3 wins rather, has not made optimal, hasn't even come close to touching it. Optimal fighters fight optimally, guys. What do you want me to say? I'm probably going to be rostering more Song than I usually would. Well, maybe that's a bad way to say that. I'm going to have a lot of this fight. A lot of this fight. I think 2-1, I'm going to have Ricky Simón rostered over Song Yadong. At 8,400, this is an absolute steal for Ricky Simón. If he wins, even in a decision, I think he scores very well, and that is kind of how I think this fight goes. 5-round decision win. Hopefully like 4-1 Simón. I mean, I'm hoping to see Simón just come out here and dominate Song Yadong. He's only 25 years old, but if you listen to a few podcasts this week, Song might be upwards of 35. We have no idea. He could be 25. He could be 30. He could be 35 years old, guys. We really don't know if you listen to, some of the Mongolian fighters that he's come up with, some of the guys that have fought him in the past. I know on the Santino DeFranco and Alekseeva's podcast, they were talking about that. I think it was that one, about how we really don't know how old this guy is. So that could play a part as well. Long story short, I love Ricky Simón here. I've talked about this fight for long enough. The numbers are crazy. Do your fight tape, but I'm going to be well over the field on Simón, and I am picking him to get the win for the main event, UFC Vegas 72. And before we get out of here, of course, I could not forget to bring you M.O.N.K's picks for UFC Vegas 72.
Oh, fuck. A clown pewter? Fuck that. Probably got no game.
We will start with Jamie Lynn Horth against Cowan. M.O.N.K's taking Haley Cowan underdog pick by decision. He's also taking Journey Newson by decision. Stephanie Egger by finish. I'm on board with that. Cody Durden upset pick, decision. Love that play. Martin Buday by decision, another upset pick. And then it's pretty much favorites from here on out. Josh Quinlan over Trey Waters by finish. Marcos Rogerio de Lima over Waldo Cortes-Acosta by finish. Julian Erosa by finish over Fernando Padilla. Rodolfo Vieira over Cody Brundage by finish. Caio over Michal Oleksiejczuk by finish. And then Ricky Simón over Yadong Song by decision. I love a lot of those picks, especially that Ricky Simón pick. I'm going to be super heavy on him this week. And guys, there's only one other thing left to do, and we will get you out of here. And that is, what is the M.O.N.K pick of the week for UFC Vegas 72? That pick for UFC Vegas 72 is going to be Ricky Simón, 8,400. This guy is a DraftKings optimal darling, the most owned no-nonsense pick of the week. 8,400. I mean, this guy's made optimal. He's one of 3 fighters since 2021 to make optimal lineup 4 times, 100% win rate, and have at least 4 fights. I mean, the guy scores 110 points per win. Absolutely insane. Over 5 points a minute. His defense is some of the best on the entire card, allowing less than 1 point a minute in his last 5 fights. The average value is 12.5, almost 13. And guys, he's only $8,400 this week. 4 out of his last 5 wins over triple digits. I absolutely love Ricky Simón. We're getting a deal on him. Even in a loss, I think he can score well. Even in a decision, a 5-round fight, I think he can score absolutely well. I mean, if he gets a finish, I don't know if that's any better than a 5-round decision, but he can score well from any way that he wants to, in my opinion. So the 4 out of 4 optimal is fantastic, and for that reason and that reason alone, I gotta put my money on Ricky Simón. 8,400, the Monk M.O.N.K pick of the week this week. And that is going to do it, guys. We broke down all 11 fights, even the couple that were switched around so far. UFC Vegas 72 happening this Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the main event. Ricky Simón, Song Yadong. I mean, your boy Jake Collier is on the card as well. Caio, I'm looking forward to that one. Definitely some exciting fights here. Hoping Stephanie Egger gets it done as well. But guys, that said, let's get you out of here. Thanks so much for watching. As usual, I want all of you to enjoy the fight. So enjoy, and we will see you in the next one.